Hey everyone, Skillsy Shooter here, and today's video is about 4 little letters that could potentially cause us some major grief when it comes to YouTube content creation, and those letters are HDCP. I wanted to make this video mainly because as a very small YouTuber, with hopes and aspirations of actually getting bigger, I was getting a bit frustrated at what I think is the big fat elephant in the room, and that's the topic of HDCP. HDCP, for those that don't know, is high bandwidth digital content protection. And this HDCP has, in my opinion, been somewhat swept under the rug thanks to a bit of creative misdirection thanks to Microsoft and Sony. But similar to the fact that, as a gaming community, we were able to reverse Microsoft's use game DRM policy, I'm hoping that we can make our voices heard on this topic as well, maybe shed a bit of light on it. It's a topic that has the potential to impact everyone in gaming, from YouTube viewers all the way up to the largest gaming content producers on YouTube that you enjoy today. There's a bit about it online at the moment, but I hadn't really seen an update video, given that some things have come to light in the last couple of weeks. So bear with me and let your old mate Skillsy Shooter take you through a few of his thoughts. So the current gen consoles have both HDMI and analog outputs, but as you know, the Xbox 360 and the PS3 differ in how they use this HDCP. For the Xbox 360, the HDMI output has HDCP enabled, but only on protected or premium content like when you fire up Netflix. The PS3's output, on the other hand, is entirely protected, and that's mainly due to the Blu-ray player and the need to protect the HDMI output with DRM. With the next generation consoles, there are some common characteristics though, in that both of them actually have no component outputs, just HDMI. So on the one hand, you have the quality of high def, but on the other hand, you've got some issues that present themselves, and they're mostly down to the Blu-ray player. Since Blu-ray is a Sony proprietary format, it's pretty safe to assume that the hammer's going to come down pretty hard on the HDMI output, just like the PS3, and have it enabled from the second you boot it up. A pretty fair assumption, given that the news that there are going to be some now in-console recording devices for both the Xbox One and the PS4. So what about these in-console gameplay capture devices? Well, both companies have given us pretty hollow details on them at the moment, but what we know is this. The Xbox One, it has a inbuilt capture device that records in a couple of ways. One way you can capture is by saying Xbox capture that, and it will go back in the buffer and then save it to the hard drive. The other way is a technology that Microsoft are apparently giving to game developers, where they have the ability to have the console record these so-called magic moments, where if you're approaching a particular achievement or a milestone, it'll actually automatically capture that footage for you. With the PS4's share button, that's been well documented, but in terms of details, I haven't actually heard concrete figures as of yet. But from what I read, it's basically like you'll hit the share button, you'll take a look at the gameplay you want to upload, you'll upload it, Bob's your uncle. But all this rapid sharing capability brings about concerns about the quality of the clips that are going to be uploaded. Sure, good gameplay is good gameplay, but YouTube is all about variety and differentiating yourself from the next person by making a video that's been put to music, or it's got good graphics or effects or narration. We don't know what's going to happen there. And what happens when should we want to edit the videos using the inbuilt tools? Do you fancy using limited tools whilst editing the video using a controller? I know I don't. Can you imagine the garbage that's going to be whacked online 9 AM on Christmas morning with someone's first sniper quad feed or roundhouse kick? It's going to be absolutely terrible. As for the tools themselves, well, what are they going to be like? Well, we don't know, do we? It's going to be something fairly clunky and fairly awful, I'm predicting. Any people who have done any sort of video editing in the past know that control is absolutely everything. Using a mouse, using a keyboard, all that sort of thing. And I'm just picturing using a controller is just going to be, about as easy as to wire a plug using boxing gloves. It makes about as much sense as Elgato saying you need to use their video editing tools rather than, exporting to Premiere Pro or Sony Vegas or whatever program you choose to use. I know I'm probably being negative, but I wouldn't expect the inbuilt tools to have anything, even remotely like Premiere Pro or Sony Vegas. I can't imagine that there would have been any sort of consultation with Adobe or any other companies like that, to consult them about what video editing tools might be the most popular or the easiest to use. Sony's tools, if any, might be slightly better given their association with the Vegas product, but I just can't imagine it would being anything better than having the raw footage for you to edit offline, upload in your own time without the need for your consoles to be on. And what about the capture files themselves? Well, what's the access going to be like for them? Are they going to be stored in the cloud? Are they going to be on our hard drive? Our hard drive's probably going to fill up pretty quick after a little while. Are we going to be able to access them when the console's off? Are we going to be able to download them so we can, stitch a selection of them together? Say if you wanted to make a walkthrough or a let's play. If that's the case, if we have to download them from the cloud, that's going to be prohibitive because, some people are on some pretty strict download limits at the moment. And if you've got a pretty shitty connection, then, what are you going to do then as well? Just a whole heap of questions that, that come up when using these in-console, capture devices. And what about the narration as well? I mean, if you wanted to do, a voiceover of something, how would you do the voiceover? Would you, have to record it separately and then import that and layer it over the captured footage? A lot of questions and not a whole lot of answers, unfortunately, in the moment. So a few questions to be answered there, but the biggest question for me as a very small YouTuber is what does the future hold for me and, more importantly, my vastly more successful gaming brethren? Obviously, the large YouTubers of the world who specialize in one particular game or platform are going to suffer the most from this, and that's pretty much the biggest thing that pisses me off, because done right, YouTube gaming content is an absolute money-making machine for the gaming industry. I don't know of a single industry that gets their products exposed more than the gaming sector. We are basically the ones pushing their products out of the Best Buys, out of the GameStops, the EBs, the JB Hi-Fis, all around the world. I mean, how many of you have bought a game solely based on seeing your favorite commentator play it? Exactly. Did you feel swayed by the advertising that you saw in store? Probably not. It was all down to, all your friends that play it and the people that you saw online play it, people that you've seen in a stream or on Twitch or whatever. So, if you take that exposure away, who do we turn to then? The studios? Probably not. I think we all saw from the, Aliens, Colonial Marines debacle that we're more likely to trust our fellow commentators than the people that were just, paid to push the product out the door, no matter what it takes. Other questions that probably should be asked: what happens to YouTubers who have got gaming sponsors who are actually paying for the exposure on these channels over the gameplay? What happens then? Do they just dry up? What happens to the very small YouTubers like myself who have pretty much had, half an enjoyable pastime taken away from them? Are we going to see a decrease in game sales because the only people putting out content is the developers or the people with express permission of Sony and Microsoft? Will we see an increase in streaming? Maybe, but most people I know have got a craptacular upload speed, myself included, so I wouldn't have thought so there. I live 180 meters from my base station. I've got a really good quality modem, and I still can't get over 1 megabyte per second. And then, of course, there is the companies like Elgato and Hapag and Ava Media. What do? Do they have to just settle for making capture devices for previous generation consoles? Or is it just a case of, tough shit, and we've already even started to see that with the headset market and the peripheral market for the upcoming consoles? For me, I think I think they've got an obligation to tell these companies and let these companies know that chances are their products will be, have an end of life with the last generation of consoles. Even if you go to Elgato's help section, they're pretty much in the dark as much as we are. So they say they haven't heard anything, but when they do get a test unit, they'll be able to test stuff out and see whether or not it works or not. But for me, though, this sort of behavior actually borders on being downright anti-competitive, in my opinion. It reminds me of back when DVDs were really new, and there were a whole host of these, DVD manufacturers who are actually being taken to court under anti-competitive laws, saying that you couldn't region code their players, just in case someone goes overseas, buys a whole heap of DVDs, and brings them back, only to find out that they can't actually play them. So I think there's an anti-competitive spin on this, definitely. But just as my rant approaches Top Gear, there might actually be a slight glimmer of hope on the horizon thanks to some things that have come to light in the last couple of weeks. Hapag officials at E3, when they got asked, and even on their actual Facebook page, said that their HD PVR2 would actually work on the next generation consoles. Gretchen Brantgen, I'm not sure who she is, but I've seen her tweets been retweeted a few times, has actually said that HDCP is enabled on the Xbox One, but it won't function any different to what we currently enjoy on the 360. So basically that's saying one of two things. Either the HDCP is enabled for Blu-ray and premium content only, and then it bypasses the gameplay, which is the best case scenario, or that there's some sort of dynamic HDCP switching that happens in the background. But that in itself, poses some problems, especially for Xbox One and their instant switching feature, because you're going from TV, you're going to Skype, you're going to games, you're going back to TV. So there are a few hurdles to be overcome there as well. And yes, I'm aware of the existence of HDCP strippers and splitters, but I shouldn't have to fork out any more money, albeit a small amount, just to get value for money for something that I bought 18 months ago, especially considering all of these videos that YouTube has put out, myself included, actually benefit the gaming industry. So in summary, I just hope that Microsoft and Sony employ a bit of forward thinking on this, and we don't have another used game DRM fiasco where one company does it right, one company gets owned massively, and then they have to do a complete about-face, a complete 180 on their policies. For me, it's a huge issue though, so it's going to be a big factor in deciding what console I'll be getting come November. And if it's something that you're weighing up too, feel free to put some comments in the section below and let me know what you're thinking. If I've even shone a tiny bit of light on this for you, please show your appreciation and give it a like, as I think it's a topic that needs to be spoken about a bit more, and it hasn't been given much exposure despite its impact on gaming and YouTube moving forward. So I'm Skillsy Shooter, thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next video.